My name is Bruce Wilcox. I'm the CEO of Project Inkwell. Project Inkwell is not the $100 laptop project. It's a different project focused on uniting a large vendor consortium behind the goal of enterprise learning at scale, and the idea that with that, every child would have a personal learning device, but we need some standards and we need some guidance to inform that behavior. We think it should be a good business, and I don't think there's anything wrong with generating profits and running responsible businesses and doing good for children at scale. I think that's kind of an important basis on which we founded Project Inkwell. Very quickly, I'm going to tell you, once a year we do an update of the project and what we're about. Then I'll introduce you to our esteemed panel. Was it Monday, Mike? One announcement we'd like to make that I think is a considerable importance here. On Monday of this week, IBM Corporation joined Project Inkwell. We think that's a significant commitment, and we're very pleased with that. And so Mike made the trip down Wednesday evening to join us here. Mike King with IBM Corporation, and I will go through introductions and introduce the rest of the team here. But I think one of the things that we're trying to achieve is learning innovation at scale. And you need to have big partners and small partners and startups and content companies and platform companies and technology companies all aligned behind this objective. And so with that, I think, what is Inkwell? We're a broad industry consortium that was formed to address the idea of innovation in K-12 systems, both domestically and worldwide. Who is Project Inkwell? We are a fairly large consortium of organizations comprised of great companies such as Red Hat, Microsoft, Clearwire, VIA Technologies, Advanced Micro Devices, Gateway Corporation, Fourier Systems, Safari Video Networks, EduComp, Veritech, ClassLink 2000, IDEO is our design and innovation partner, Inspiration Software, Promethean, Stelgis, Pearson, the Software and Information Industry Association, the Consortium for School Networking, the State Education Technologies Directors Association, and many others. So you're seeing here a large group of people, but the team that's really allied behind this is quite significant, and I think is stellar in this industry. Inkwell gets together and we run working group meetings in which folks like those we have here on stage assemble and really do a deep dive into the area of device requirements for the devices the learners use, the enabling infrastructure, the server and computing capacity model, and of course, but much beyond all of that is the idea of the professional services the educator requires and the content and instructional model that should precede the entire discussion of what we do with the technology. So that's what Inkwell's about. In those working group meetings last November, the result of those meetings was the publication of our Inkwell Functional Requirements for Student Devices version 1.0. Those have been downloaded by hundreds of school districts, many states, and several countries to inform their decision-making in procuring technology for school children. One interesting little bit on Monday, I received a note from the Department for Education and Skills in the United Kingdom. So for the folks here from the UK, they are now using the Inkwell requirements to inform what I will believe to be the first developed nationwide adoption of one-to-one learning at scale. In England, they call it mobile learning. They call it personalization of learning. It's a terrific opportunity. They're investing $20 billion US dollars, 10 billion British pound, to achieve a ratio of one child per one personal learning device, and I applaud that investment. I really think that's a pioneering effort, and if folks aren't watching, they're leading the charge in the idea that not only developing countries, but developed countries really need to be thinking about how do we deliver learning to our children at scale. In the past, Inkwell's Spark design, Scott, are you out there? Maybe just put, if there's a way to put the slide of the Spark up. Our design concept, which was created by our partner IDEO, is a finalist for the prestigious Index Design to Improve Life Award. And wouldn't you have it that the award, I'm competing with Elon and the Tesla motor car. So we're the two finalists in that endeavor. Of course, if he wins, I get a car. If I win, he gets an Inkwell Spark. I couldn't resist the opportunity. We're also in the running for the International Design Excellence Award of the Industrial Designer Societies of America. So wish us luck in those two endeavors, because I think that'll make Inkwell a much more visible project and get us some of that PR momentum that I think the project requires. In the past few months, we've always said Inkwell would form up a governor's task force. We're pleased to say that's happening. Governor Janet Napolitano has participated in the most recent Inkwell Working Group meeting. She chairs the National Governors Association. She also chairs a task force for innovation in America. So Don Budinger, who you heard earlier, was very instrumental in making that happen and creating that linkage. But that said, Janet asked Governor Huntsman to join us for our next meeting. We've also believed that as we link the governors together, that's going to create this, one of our long-told hypotheses was how do we aggregate demand so that companies can make responsible investments in developing products that are appropriate for school children? So we're doing a good job of that. Today we have with us a number of our Inkwell partners who are allies in defining and implementing our shared vision of learning innovation at scale. So to my left is CJ Holthaus with VIA Technologies. High performance, low power consumption, long battery life, many of the things that we're looking for in Inkwell spec devices, VIA can do it. So we're very happy to have you here, CJ, and you'll hear further from CJ in just a moment. Otto Berkes is architect, mobile platforms division with Microsoft Corporation. Otto came off a 2-month sabbatical just to join us here today. That's how important this whole endeavor is to Otto. You'll know Otto from his past experience both in creating and bringing to market the Xbox platform, but beyond that, the entire origami and UMPC efforts. So thank you for being here, Otto. Mike King with IBM Corporation. He's the general manager responsible for all of IBM's endeavors in the education and government enterprise worldwide. Have I said that right? Mm-hmm. So it's a huge endeavor, huge responsibility, and a very large market opportunity and for IBM Corp. Thanks again for joining us here. Tom Greaves. You've all probably read Tom's guest letter in the Strategic News Service. Tom is I would say a guru in this industry with respect to one-to-one, how it can be done, how to make it work, how do we get those instructional outcomes, and has probably more bumps and bruises from knowing what's the right thing to do than any of us combined. So very pleased to have Tom Greaves here with us with the Greaves Group, also representing an Inkwell partner company, FiRe Systems. And then David Engle, our superstar, our leader, our visionary, and the one who I think gives us all soul to do this hard work because he has to deal with those students on a day-to-day basis in Squalicum School District. So welcome. Glad you're here, David. Squalicum High School, sorry. Thank you. So I thought I'd just kick it off. Maybe one of the questions I have, Tom, in particular for yourself is, it's a big market. How big a market is it? What are you hearing? You did a survey research for the demand for one-to-one in our school system. So what are you hearing out there? And then I'll pass it to Mike to have his comments. And why would IBM, given that they're not in the device space, why would IBM be involved in this type of endeavor? And then we'll go from there. Tom?
Thank you, Bruce. Last year we did a study because not too many people know how big this market really is, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, but we surveyed the top 2,500 school districts just in the U.S., and we asked them about 100 questions about one-to-one. One of the questions is, are you doing a pilot or more in one-to-one? We defined a pilot as at least one grade in one school. And based on that, about 25% of the American school districts in that size range of 4,000 students and above are doing at least a pilot. So if you extrapolate that, that's maybe a couple thousand schools, and it is maybe 500,000 students are involved in one-to-one in the U.S.
Currently. But what do you see project as growth?
Well, it's obviously growing fairly rapidly. It's probably going about 15-20% a year. Another thing we found out is that the school world is moving from desktops to laptops. And the laptop growth rate, which is an indicator of one-to-one growth rate, is growing. They're growing at 25% a year. Desktops are flat and declining over the next 5 years.
It's terrific. If I was to put that in quantitative numbers in terms of the size of the U.S. school system, so we have 50 million kids, K-12 approximately, and you're saying a 20% uptake year over year, 25% in laptops in particular. So we'd be done in 5 years or less, if we were to look at it that way, right?
Not quite. I don't know that's how the percentages work, but it's getting there.
It's my math. The whole country.
The bigger the numbers, the slower the growth rate.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Tom. Mike, I had a question really, which it comes back to IBM and that of the, here we are. Those who know Inkwell, we've been very focused on the device specification, getting small, lightweight, rugged, instant-on, portable computing for kids. To quote Eric Touche in Pascack Valley, who ran a 2,000 laptop implementation for student devices, he says, one-to-one is a Megillah that can take a district down. And then after 90% failure of the laptops that they first used in his 2,000 student high school setting, Eric also had this to say, we ran short on duct tape. So we've focused on this device space really to think about, the darn things have to work. They've got to be rugged. They've got to be portable because the kids put them through they put them through a type of experience that none of us here who use our business class laptops are exposed to. So with that, Mike, IBM sold the PC division to Lenovo. Lenovo's out there and doing what they're doing, but why would IBM join up with Inkwell? What's your ambition? What do you see happening in kind of the K-12 space?
Well, it's a good question, and first I'll say well over half of IBM's revenues in mine globally in education come from services. And if you look at the broad deployment of devices to students, which is necessary, I think, to really transform education and impact learning over time, the challenge is not so much the device. It quickly becomes all the supporting infrastructure behind that. How do you deploy it, the services around that? And I think that's an opportunity for IBM. There are three trends that I believe are going to really impact this and start to drive transformation in education. The first is really using technology to manage learning. And in the past, we've thrown technology into classrooms, whether it was a VCR or a PC or instant messaging, and just assumed that something would happen. And now we're really beginning to build systems. In Ohio, the Data-Driven Decision-Making for Academic Achievement, IBM has developed a pilot there. We're creating a system for the New York Board of Education for all 1.1 million of their students that really collect assessment data, make that information available to teachers, and then help provide prescriptive recommendations on where they can intervene individually with students around particular learning activities. So we're starting to build the technology infrastructure to really manage the learning process. And I think that will, instead of having dueling white papers 3 years after the fact about did this or did this not impact learning, we can actually make that insight available in the classrooms for the teachers who can really then impact individual students. The second trend that's going to help accelerate this are communities of vendors like Inkwell who begin to exploit open technologies in the sense that whether it are open standards for content, open source platforms like Sakai, which we're investing in for learning, we can begin to harness a community of innovation to make the innovations that we all create as a vendor community and the education community available to everyone and scale those out. And the third area is around virtualization and virtualizing desktops, where we envision shifting a lot of the compute power back into a server someplace so that the device itself becomes very lightweight, inexpensive. You can spill Pepsi on it. You can even have it broken and just replace it simply and move all the management out of the classroom. We don't really want second grade school teachers having to update devices to protect against viruses and to do all that backup and systems management of these devices. So to make this really broadly deployable, we think there's a great opportunity to begin to shift some of this back into a services model where the devices are simply low-cost, almost throwaway kinds of commodities.
So the idea being that wherever the child is, whatever device they're using, that they're tethered to some type of managed infrastructure and services play that allows that learner, if oh gosh, the dog ate my homework, and there it is, it's still stored in the network somewhere, and that revives that kind of continuous learning process, ensures that the child doesn't lose any of the work that they've invested in their learning activities, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's an interesting segue then to this other broader topic, Otto. Otto and I, it's been nice to have somebody to commiserate with, because certainly Otto has been pushing the origami offering and UMPC, but the broader issue is this trend of mobility. And so here you have these kind of little people that are growing up. Their bodies aren't as big as our bodies, and they're kind of tough and rugged, and they run, and they get on buses, and they carry backpacks, and all these things. And so we got into this discussion that broadly, Inkwell is moving towards this area and this set of requirements for mobility. And so I think you see the kind of the UMPC as the first iteration of this broader kind of tension in the marketplace between the traditional IT PC OEM and the handset manufacturer. And in fact, it'll be great to see the CTO break out in terms of what do they come back with the ultimate device. I think I'm looking forward to that. But Otto, what comments do you have in terms of as you look at this?
Yeah, just to emphasize your point, I believe that there is obviously a services and management aspect to delivering the kind of value that we want to deliver into education, into the classroom. That said, I see more of a hybrid model emerging. I believe that there's a huge amount of value in putting the full power of the PC and full computing capability into hands of students. And ultramobile PC, the idea there is to really bridge that gap between the traditional mobile PC, the laptop, and mobile devices like phones and PDAs, and to have essentially a new type of computing platform that bridges the gap and combines the best attributes of devices and full functionality computing.
So it's interesting to me because via Otto I was introduced to the gentleman sitting to your left, CJ Holthaus, that this whole issue of kind of low power mobile devices, the idea that we could create a smaller form factor, ruggedize it, this isn't news to VIA. VIA's, that's what they do. You know, the idea of building, you know, processors that are optimized around performance, but beyond that, the idea that they're drawing less power, therefore get us some of that battery life improvement that we've been looking for. So CJ, from VIA's perspective, what I find interesting is, you know, Intel was an early partner with Project Inkwell, as Mark wrote in the SNS publication, and I won't comment on that. AMD joined us as a partner, also as another semiconductor partner. But then VIA is in the room, and what I find interesting is where's VIA's footprint in terms of getting these overall lower cost, high performance devices into North America or other developed markets? And what comments would you share with us, CJ, on that topic?
Well, we have been in the providing value PCs to the mainstream marketplace. We've been selling PCs in China, India, and the rest of the world, and even in the US, and some embedded devices where people wanted, you know, good performance, low power, you know, and so that they can put these PCs everywhere. And this has been a perfect segue of trying to get into the mobile marketplace, because the PC marketplace is incredibly tough, especially from a processor silicon provider like we are, going against the biggest guy on the planet, Intel. And people have seen the value of what we've done in this. And you know, I'm known as the gadget guy here, and I have examples of these small form factor type PCs that are recognized as a first UMPC that we worked with Microsoft and Samsung. This thing is available today, and you may not have heard this much about the VIA version of it because it beats the Intel version. It's $100 cheaper, and it gets 3 more hours of battery life. And when you have this extended battery life, this thing will last all day, and it's a slate PC. You can touch it. You can get a portfolio that you can carry this around all day, and we can make these forever at a very affordable price. So,
CJ, what kind of battery life do you get?
This one with the 3-cell battery will get 5 hours. With this extended cell, we'll get 10 hours. You really don't have to charge it up during the day, and it just depends on how much you bang on the wireless and stuff. But this has full, rich, video capabilities. It does hardware acceleration for Windows Media, so you can watch movies on this, and it just just sips the battery. But you can't find these things. There's not reviews of them out on the web, or if you do, they're very they're not very well publicized. So I'd like to show we've just finalized the device specs for Project Inkwell, and this is one that everybody's really excited about. This is a 7-inch notebook that people I think really want a keyboard for a lot of data entry. With this one, Slate, you can do with a USB keyboard or a virtual keyboard. But this also is a convertible stylus, and so you can just write on it like this. So this is a very exciting form factor. We have other designs like this underway, and then we have another type of form factor I think that might be a intermediary device. These devices with a built-in keyboard and slide up. There's several of these around, but this is one from OQO that's very nice. This is a great form factor.
Great product. It's interesting to me, my first introduction to it, it's a T83, right? And Asus Tech is the firm that's producing that. There's this wonderful video segment of the product marketing manager being interviewed, if you go to the UMPC forum, in which they really get stuck on trying to, the word tablet just didn't come out right, couldn't say it, tablet, and it was really just funny to see the interviewer and the gentleman trying to explain what that's all about. Now, that man's name is James Tang, and James is with Asus Tech, and he and I were chatting about bringing this technology into the US market, and then particularly because it meets many of the Inkwell requirements. And what I'm curious about, CJ, is what are you running into in terms of we want to bring this device, meets the specs, why isn't there more visibility? Why doesn't James get the marketing support required to do that? From where you sit.
Like I said, Intel's a very formidable competitor. They really don't like the idea of a low-cost, affordable PC because they worry about cannibalization of their marketplaces. Most of the PCs that are being used in a one-to-one rollout are these notebooks that you have in front of you. We call them a 2-spindle notebook. They're high-margin devices. And for somebody to come in with a very low cost, smaller design, it just would erode their margins. So they really want to put the brakes on it as much as possible. So some of our other barriers is having a very high profile OEM to get in there. Now we have success in the U.S. within clients, and I think it is congruent to what Mike's doing with IBM in a managed services. So we do have success. We're coming in at all corners and the like, but when you hit the mainstream notebook place, it's like people believe that it has to have Intel or AMD inside, and you really don't need that. Most people care about how many number of USB ports they have on their PC as opposed to which processor silicon is.
So the great news is they're Inkwell spec devices. Our specifications are informing development of really great products that are being developed. But we need your help. We need the SNS community help. We need the press help to indicate that there are other folks out there besides what Intel is doing and what Negroponte is doing in the $100 laptop endeavor that are building appropriate, high-powered technologies for children. So CJ, thank you for that. David, you see all these things there. You have to run a school building. You've got to make decisions about what would you buy, what makes sense. How are you feeling about all this?
Well, I have a happy, productive high school, and so I'm kind of in a place where if I can make big change now, the prospects are really good. I think about my students and the fact that probably 30% of them are disengaged from the educational process in high school. They're compliant, they'll get through it, but they're not engaged, their brains aren't sparking the way they should be. And I think this change is, what we're looking at is we need to make a step change in education of a whole new order, and it's going to require technologies that help us get there. And certainly digital technologies offer that stage jump. I do want to roll out what I call the hip hop or the hip top, the most advanced digital change technology that I've had my hands on in the school system, and I wanted to roll that out today. It's too bad I didn't go first, CJ, but this is a hip top digital change machine. It makes change, and Bruce, if you have $1, I'll show you how it works.
Let's see. Yeah, you got me on the spot here. Did I remember to bring $1? There, look at that. I do. I have one.
Okay, see, I don't know how to operate this yet, so you get 4 cents on the dollar. Okay, here's the quarters. So now you see some benefit from this. The problem with this technology is it's only good for small change. And I'm really interested in, like I said, step change and significant large change. And so when I look at these devices down in CJ's lap, I'm going, you're not getting off the stage empty without me getting some of those. So for me, putting devices in the hands of students in a smart way, in a managed way, in a way that doesn't kind of put us in a place in education where I've heard this 1,000 times. We've already done that because we had a failure 10 years ago. We're not going to do it again. So I think being smart is really important, and I think Project Inkwell offers us the chance to work together, educators and all the device and systems folks, software folks, all the digital materials folks, to work together to be smart about how we bring technology into the schoolhouse and make that big change occur. And in some ways it's way more about engaging kids for me than it is about making big change. I think the largest change at the end of the day, what I think I'll look for as a school principal is, are kids fired up and excited about learning? Are they engaged to the degree we are about the future? And do they have hope in their own ability to kind of change the future themselves? And do they have the tools to do that? And does it happen in a school environment where it's mediated, where we can really be smart about how we do it? Is all crucial to me, because right now my kids have integrated technology in the schoolhouse, but it's utterly unmediated by and large, and it's their own kind of pure mediation that's occurred. And that's not to devalue that, but we don't know what the outcomes are, and we don't know how productive that behavior is. All of my kids now, the other day, I was in the lunchroom and I just did kind of a straw poll around the lunch tables. They all have cell phones. I don't care what their family background is, every kid has a cell phone because it's become an item of personal adornment. And so they all have that. They bring in the school. And they use it during the school day. It's kind of remarkable. Just the past couple of years, having the cameras on a cell phone has created a whole new cheating dynamic that I'm figuring out right now. How do I work with that when they're able to take a nice picture of a test and pass it on to their peers who are coming into the door next period to take the same exam? Whole new world out there. They all have an MP3 player of some kind, some flavor. And that's another piece of personal adornment. 80 to 90% of the kids have their own PC at home or some kind of computing device, no matter what their family background is. So the worries about the digital divide, I think, are in some ways less significant than we thought they'd be. So to achieve that big change, I think we need to be really smart about what I call actually looking across, I don't call it one-to-one necessarily, but full spectrum computing in school, so that the teacher and the students define the task, the learning task, and then they deploy technologies as appropriate to the task, and that the goal isn't to be one-to-one necessarily, but to be able to be one-to-one when needed. And to have that in the schoolhouse in a robust way, for me, is how we're going to make that step change in education. And we have a lot at stake here. If you've been paying attention throughout this conference, you've heard the importance of educational systems kind of underpinning economic growth and just solving a large societal problem. So it's a big problem, and I think the solution needs to be really smart and well integrated.
Wonderful. We have a couple of minutes left. We can do. Are there any questions from the crowd, real quick? Bring the lights up a little bit. One question.
You know I have a question. Hi, Lil Kellogg with Education Networks of America, and I listen to these conversations. I've been in education technology for 20 years, defending technology. And the circumstance is getting worse, not better. And we are in a room full of research and thought leaders who use technology to create our future. But our children aren't given that opportunity to understand how to use that technology to create their own futures as well. So how do we begin to, I listened to the step change that you're talking about, the big change. How do we begin to get that wave of taking technology out of schools to kind of reverse that and be able to, what are some of the real tangible things that we can do as business leaders and thought leaders to change that wave? And I understand what Project Inkwell is doing, but it seems like it needs to get broader, and we need some help in doing that. Thanks.
Any of you guys want to take it?
I'm always good to take it.
Sure, Tom.
It's a very good question, though. And what we found in the survey is that only 17% of the one-to-one implementations were good, where they got great academic results. Not that the kids felt better or the parents were happier, but they actually did a lot better. 47% did a little bit better, 27% didn't even measure it. And so the problem we've got is that a few people are doing well, but nobody knows it. And it's sort of like shutting down a hospital. If the MRI machine is broken, you go back to not using technology. That's not the answer. The answer really is to figure out how to make the 17% to be 100%. And how this group can help, one way is that they're all involved. They all know somebody on a school board. They all know a school superintendent. And spread the word that there are ways to make it work. Things like Mike was talking about are integral to that, because it's the systematic approach of technology, not just throwing hardware at a problem.
You can't do the gods must be crazy strategy. You just drop the laptops out of the thing, out of the airplane, and they land in the school. Kids, you have to have a system approach.
Yeah, I think our comeback on that was that how do you ensure the positive outcomes? It starts with good instructional design. What are the learning objectives, and what are the tools that are going to support that? And so I think that kind of methodology has not been really applied to the education space. And so Lillian, To get to your point, I think that one of the roles here, and Tom asked, what should be the call to action for all the FiRe attendees and for the people that revolve around this community? The call to action is to begin to elevate the visibility of innovation in our school systems. We have to innovate in a compressed time scale. This has to be driven by a sense of urgency that it's tough for the educational technology community and the educational community to do. So we need a broader footprint and more help to really put some energy behind this issue of innovation at scale. So we're over our time here. I wonder if, David, did you have one more question? Mark, we okay? Or maybe one question from David Brent, and then we'll conclude. Oh. Heidi Larson.
Hi. I know maybe I'm not fair here, but it's been very focused on American school systems, and I know we're looking a little bit beyond that with Inkwell. Can you just say a couple words on how, if the U.S. looks at what it's looking at without taking that bigger picture of what else is going on in the rest of the world with school systems and education, especially given the influx and outflux of migration, how are we going to position what we're doing here in the context of education in other countries?
Yeah, it's a good question, Heidi. I think we didn't think that it was a one-size-fits-all approach to begin with, and so we thought, well, we tackle a marketplace that was large enough and attractive enough that it would encourage vendor behavior, and then we'd build a consortium of companies that we would look at each one of these endeavors unique and to itself. And so a solution for the United States, for the United Kingdom, from Australia, New Zealand, Germany, that would be very different, I think, than when we're going into a developing country, particularly from things we've heard here today, the deployment of WiMAX infrastructure to just leapfrog other terrestrial solutions. That has different implications in a developing country than it does here, because we have incumbent telcos and those challenges that we have here. So I think that we're developing a methodology and a process and a consortium of organizations that, as a nation says, we would like to think about learning innovation. What can we do to deliver services, better services to our school children? That a call would go out and that Inkwell would respond. And a similar consortium is formed in that nation to identify, a trajectory for improvement and growth. And I think it would be presumptive of us to say that what we're suggesting for, the United States, marketplace and the education industry is relevant to a developing country. So I'm first to say that I think that we have a lot more learning to do, but we've built the right team to engage in that dialogue with nations as they decide to move forward with the very large enterprise learning projects. So if Brazil wants, the stellar world-class consortium to sit with them as they think about going through a one-to-one project, well, we're here. And I think the same call, there's a fairly significant project in Egypt right now. Again, you need to bring that consortium together to attack this and not do it in a kind of haphazard fashion. I think there's a methodology to this. I think that it requires big partners of scale, and it requires the vitality of startups in that region to get together and kind of solve these problems. So, all right on. Thanks. I want to just pause. Thanks. This is an extraordinary group of folks and companies that are allied behind Project Inkwell. Thank you to each of you guys for coming here and working with us. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.